Hello, welcome to another edition of Writers Behaving Badly. And my name is Safra. And well, I think you already know, well, you probably clicked to see Romance Writers of America. Ooh, boy. I think they're still called Romance Writers of America. I know the HWA, which is Horror Writers Association, used to be Horror Writers of America, and then because it was a worldwide organization, we changed it to association. But I don't think the Romance Writers of America did that. Romance Writers of America was founded in 1980, I believe with 37 members it started with, and now well, before earlier this year or earlier in 2019, it had over 9,000 members. And so there's been stuff happening in this field for a long time. I personally don't know a lot about the romance field. I've explored it a little bit, and I've talked about this before on this channel because I do have a series, an erotic horror series, which is put out by Romance Publisher, and I do horoscopes for Romance Daily News. So I know Riverdale Avenue Books is heavily invested in the Romance Writers of America and what's going to happen next. Just one of many publishers who's watching this going, oh my God. Now, I'm not speaking for Riverdale Avenue Books because, they have their thing, but I know they're we're all pretty upset by what's happening, and it's happening. And so this is kind of a really long thing, and I personally am not going to get all into it because for starters, I don't know all the nitty gritty, and I think it would take me a week or two to really wrap my head around every nuance, read every link and everything. So I am going to put a link to a very informative blog that I found. Claire Ryan, who I believe is a romance writer, has been documenting the events, so I pop over to her blog now and again to see what's happening, and she has a bazillion links. She has the timeline from when everything's happening, so you can definitely go there and really educate yourself on all this stuff. But just briefly, at the end of 2019, we did see bunch of shuffling around in publishing. Cheesine publications exploded. Bedside Books, a few other. Edge was called out for non-payment. We're always kind of looking at Cemetery Dance, but these are all horror publishers and things like that. Now we're into romance, and the allegations are that the RWA, Romance Writers of America, as an organization, is rife with discrimination and other practices that have really split and ultimately exploded the company. I'm not even sure if Romance Writers of America exists anymore. I mean, I imagine they do to some extent, but people have been leaving that organization like rats on a sinking ship. And they have their annual conferences, like we do in horror. And so they have the annual conference, and then they have the annual awards, the RITA awards for romance writers. And so writers have been pulling their books out from the awards. Publishers have been pulling out from attending the conference itself. So everything's completely collapsing. And, it started, I'm sure it started a million years ago with all kinds of things. And then, but this latest issue has been just back and forth between writers and the organization, and people claiming people are being racist, other people claiming people are bullying. There's lawsuits and all these things flying around. So to really get a grasp of what's happening, I highly recommend to go to Claire Ryan's timeline and see for yourself. But this is huge. The romance world is completely exploding. I feel sorry for romance writers. any side of the fence, really. You know, the president they have now was put in place because the other president resigned or something, and so the current president, people are angry at him because they say he doesn't qualify. Then they also are calling him names about being racist and other things. And yeah, I'm just bringing this to your attention because, like I said, I don't have time to read through all these things. I have deadlines of my own to hit this week, as a matter of fact. But I really needed to pop on. And if you don't know that, there's a big scandal in the romance world. And if you're a romance writer, I highly invite you to educate yourself on what all the publishers, like we're talking Harper Collins and Penguin and all these big guys, the big guys are like pulling out from all of this. So you know it is important to know what's happening. How is this going to affect your career? Who are the good guys? Who are not the good guys? Who do you need to align yourself with? How is the romance industry going to proceed? I mean, I know the publishers, this isn't a matter of a publisher collapsing, so the publishers will still continue on. But as the organization that pulled all these authors and artists and fans together since 1980 is now gone, I think. People need to regroup and rethink, and really, again, this is another indication of something, as we saw in the horror field with Cheesy and people like that, publishers and other little organizations in horror. We now see reflected in romance, and I'm sure it's happening in other genres, that the old school ways are not working anymore. You know, we saw it in Hollywood with the Me Too movement and people screaming out now about the casting couches, which was the big thing in Hollywood. We don't have casting couches as writers. Nobody cares about sleeping with a writer. But we have our own, you know, axe to grind and shit to get straight here in the writing world and publishing, and everything is creaking along. And if you know, watch this channel, you probably know I'm an astrologer, tarot card reader, and this is another example of the Tower card going, wake up, things are changing. The rules have changed. Society has changed. What was acceptable in the old boys club is not acceptable anymore. And the new kids are not going to take what us old kids did take, especially women in any field. Women, we've all taken it for too long because women had to shut up if you even wanted to stay in the status quo. Now everyone can shout and be angry and point out where the holes in the walls are, fill those cracks, or blow up the wall. But something needs to be done with all these organizations. And 1980 to me isn't that long ago. Like, that's the year I graduated high school. You know? So to me, that's within my lifetime, my wheelhouse, and I have totally seen how society has changed. All the genres have changed, all the rules have changed, which was also why I wasn't as prolific the last few years in my own career, as I had been before, because I could see society and what was acceptable and not acceptable was changing a lot. And as a horror writer, I don't want to offend. I want to frighten and thrill and chill people. I don't want to be causing any issues with racism and ableism and all these other ideas that we really all need to be conscious about and aware of, and make sure everyone has a place at the table and that everyone is treated with respect, right? So anyways, I'm going to put a link at the bottom to this blog that has the timeline and a million links for you to check out for yourself what's happening in the romance world. And at the end of the day, just keep writing, believe in yourself, believe in others, treat everyone how you want to be treated. Expand your mind, expand your horizons, be aware that there are many types of cultures and races and genders and sexualities and so on, that it can be all inclusive in your work. You don't have to put everything in one book, but be aware that, you know, it's not just white people having romances anymore. Be aware of, if you're writing about different races, that you're not being offensive. And the language keeps changing. changing as well. And for someone like me who's pushing 60, I try really hard to stay on top of what's current and what's acceptable, because languaging that we used even 10 years ago is not acceptable today. You can really see in the old sitcoms and movies and stuff how, entertainment from the 70s and 80s, a lot of it does not hold up well today because, the punchline being something about race or gender or sexuality, and now we don't cotton to those ideas anymore. We gotta be more open-minded and accepting of everyone. And so just keep that in mind. But again, write from the heart, write what you believe in. Don't be afraid to express yourself and to be creative, but just be aware of some of these social explosions. That's all I can call it, is explosions. It's all exploding. Because, much like wildfires, and I don't mean the hellish wildfires in Australia, but what naturally would be a wildfire in the forest happens because it's clearing the brush for new trees to grow, new foliage to bloom. So this is what's happening now. Everything's on fire because we have to clear the way for new voices, new ideas, more encompassing and inclusive attitudes and ideas to come forward. All right, so have a fantastic day. Happy New Year. Let me know what you think, and if you have more links to add where people can find out more information about what's happening, please feel free to add them in the comments. I always invite you to input your own voice on all these ideas. All right, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you soon.